Minutes after 7 o'clock. Joining us in studio this morning, Miss Cristina Arnold, Miss Margaret Kennard from the Chaves County Federated Republican Women. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good.
Good. How
morning.
are you?
Doing real good, doing good. So, obviously, early morning, we're all kind of shaking off the cobwebs, and we're also shaking off the cobwebs of the whole Rona thing. We're kind of getting back to normal. Things are sort of opening up. We're getting out and doing stuff, and things are changing as we get into 2021. And obviously, the laws are also changing. We've been hearing a lot of interesting information coming out lately about some legalization, some recreational legalization, so to speak. So why are we here this morning? Let's talk about that. Are we talking about are we talking about the legislation that was recently pushed through? What's been going on in the at the Capitol?
This last session, the governor actually called a special session to pass cannabis legislation.
Okay.
And so it will be effective June 29th of this year.
Okay. So as of June 29th of this year, it's officially passed. It just takes some time to kind of get things in place.
Administratively, they have set up to do. There's a great deal of time before retail actually comes about, and that's not till April of 2022.
Sure.
So what we are here about today is to discuss the Chaves County Federated Republican Women's upcoming roundtable forum discussion.
Okay.
Which is about cannabis in our community.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, what are you guys going to be focusing on during this roundtable?
Well, we have a roundtable of guests. We have Senator Purtle.
Okay.
Mayor Kintai, Sheriff Harrington,
Gotcha.
And one of the Great House brothers from Pecos Valley Productions.
Okay.
The whole point is to get educated.
Gotcha.
Cannabis is here. Our community needs to be educated on how it works.
And we're all kind of going through the door together. I mean, it's brand new. There's folks that probably know about the growth side of things. There's folks that probably know about the business side of things, and it's kind of an education for everybody. This is all brand new. We've never dealt with anything like this on a retail level. Obviously, Pecos Valley Productions has dealt with a little more of the retail side of things. They kind of know the business side of things, and that's sort of what it is. It's just kind of getting all that in order and figured out.
Well, a lot of people, whether they're for or against it, if you don't know enough about the way something works or how it's processed, it can be confusing, and it can also be worrisome.
Right.
That things might be worse than they are, or that it could be better than it's going to be. So just outlining it, whether not necessarily the Chaves County Federated Women aren't coming from a two or for or against position. Mostly our goal is just to present the information. I have a lot of questions, and Margaret does as well as a city councilor. So,
and that's the thing is, it's not the same as it used to be. There's so much more that goes into it. The science has increased. There's so many different ways that they synthesize it now, and then that they can put it into different products. And it's all a learning process, I think. And I think what I like about this is that you guys are approaching it from all the different aspects, from the legal side of things, from the legislative side of things, the business side, and just kind of taking all those aspects into account. And it sounds like we're kind of putting together like a team, a fighting force against figuring out how we're going to make this work in Chaves County.
Yeah, and the roundtable is set up where we actually have designated questions that have been formulated. So basically, in that hour and a half, you're going to get a lot of information, and hopefully we can cram it all into an hour and a half.
Sure. Well, and that's the thing is there's so much that goes into it. From, like you said, figuring out the timeline of like how we put things in place and setting up retail spaces, the business side of things. I know that other states have dealt with putting money in banks. That from proceeds from the sale of cannabis, they've had issues putting it in banks, and so they've started other systems to process that money essentially. So there's just different things that need to be put in place, and I think it all starts with an education, and that's kind of where we're at. So let's kind of talk about what is going to happen during this this roundtable. We're all going to be sitting down. We're going to be chatting. Let's talk about the timeline. What do you guys know as far as like the timeline goes of what we're looking at?
As far as for
the next year or so, like what are we going to be up against
for cannabis?
as far as like cannabis goes, as far as like putting things in place?
Okay.
Like, do we have any kind of like timelines, like any kind of idea of like what needs to be put in place and when?
So in my research, what I found extremely interesting is that they already have the website set up. They're already starting to move, which, considering that I guess I just wasn't anticipating it just happening this quickly. And then,
and when you say they, you're talking about the state?
I'm sorry, yes. The state has the website set up. The actual New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department has it all set up. So I kind of knew it was passed and hadn't really even considered how much had been done on it. And then I started doing the research, and it's set up. There's a timeline. There is an organization, or there's actually the advisory committee. The advisory committee has already been applications for it. The deadline has already come up as of May 3rd.
Okay.
So, and then the timeline that you're talking about, you have, and I have it listed here. You have in September, they'll select the advisory committee. They'll start accepting and processing licenses and applications for cannabis producers. And then in January, they'll start issuing the licenses and doing training and education on cannabis. So then you have the next step would be April 1st, cannabis sales begins.
Right. And then that's the whole thing is there's a whole ecosystem that has to be set up beforehand. I mean, the retail space, but in addition to that, the security, the different different aspects of accessories that go with it. I mean, there's whole industries that are being started basically from the ground up. And I think one of the things that you touched on back there that was kind of interesting was you said that you didn't anticipate that all this would just be ready to go.
Right.
I think a lot of people did. I think that a lot of people have kind of been anticipating this for a few years and sort of laid the groundwork.
If you're a producer, but if you're just an everyday citizen or a member of this community, you don't. And I think the goal is to make sure that our community doesn't wake up on April 2nd and go, what the heck?
Yeah, that we don't get swept up in the fervor, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing is there's people that, like we said, there's people that know what they're doing and they know the business. And then there's some of us that kind of need to know so we can kind of make sure it all flows, smoothly.
Well, and I think that the point that you were trying to make is that the state already has all of these things in motion shortly after the legislation was passed, right?
Yeah.
So seems like there was some foreplanning there.
Definitely a lot of anticipation, a lot of anxiety. I think maybe in a lot of ways, a lot of excitement for the possibilities of things. But this is specifically just to kind of get folks who maybe have no idea what any of this is, just a baseline knowledge of it's coming. You need to be aware of it. Things could change. From a legal standpoint, from a legislative standpoint, things are going to change, and we want to make sure the folks are educated about it.
Well, we kind of also want to know what our rights as a community are, and that's why Mayor Kintai, to talk about there are certain do's and cannot do's for the local jurisdictions. I think that we have an idea of what cannabis regulation looks like in other states.
Right.
We've heard the talk, and whether we like it or not, it's been passed.
Right.
But how we actually react to it in our community, that's handy to know what kind of what we can and can't do.
Sure, absolutely.
And so that's why you bring in the mayor to discuss what the city is looking at, kind of because the county has some has some powers as far as growers and certain retailers, but knowing what it's supposed to look like and what we, I think the biggest thing for me is I have friends from Colorado who basically say one of the most irritating parts about the cannabis legislation up there is that people will just get right in front of doors and smoke cannabis because it's not like, cigarette smoke.
Right.
They haven't regulated it to that extent where you can't smoke near doorways
And I think in a lot of cases, the places that treat it like alcohol and treat it as such, you don't consume alcohol in public. It's it's a crime to consume it behind the wheel or be under the influence while you're driving. I think if we treat it in a lot of ways in those same parallels, I think that's going to help kind of clarify things in a lot of ways.
Well, absolutely, and I don't know what kind of I guess power the city has to monitor certain things like that, but that's what we're going to find out on Thursday night.
And it's coming up this Thursday night. It's going to be 5:30 to 7:30, and that's going to be over at the Archive Building there at the Historical Society, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
201, I think it is, North Lee.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah,
Yep.
And it's free.
Absolutely.
So we just want people to come out, and even though with the Republican women, our goal is we're doing an issue-based event. So we just want people to come out and have discussions with us.
Okay.
And like I said, it's the first portion is question. The second portion, there's a small portion for independent questions. But we have a pretty good list, I think, of all, sides of the 4 guest speakers. But there's a lot that I guess needs to be worked out.
Sure. There's a lot that we don't know as far as like from the legal standpoint of things. There's a lot that how are things going to work as far as like the growing side and then the the legislative side or the legal side. Are they going to come together and be able to work together? Traditionally speaking, they've always been at odds with each other, and so it's kind of going to be interesting to see that those two groups kind of coming together and working together for the greater good.
Well, yes, and there's been an element. A lot of the governor's words were regarding, basically bringing in an industry and maintaining public safety.
Right.
Well, so I'm curious. What is the law enforcement? Are they going to be trained? How are they going to be trained? And that's, of course, a question we're going to be asking the sheriff. Any additional training, or what can we expect? Are they going to be ready for this? And so. Not that I'm expecting anything big and rowdy, and not that I really have. Actually, I hardly think about cannabis.
Sure.
But yeah. But it is something that we know is going to be a change to our community. It's the possibility. We have a good community.
Yeah.
And so I think just the reason we have a good community is because we're educated on topics. We're aware of things. We have a group of leaders that actually speaks to us, and so I think we just need to maintain that.
It's one of those kind of it's the beast that we don't know kind of is why it's such a thing. It's so much so worrisome, so to speak. But I feel like once things kind of settle down a little bit, and we kind of like understand that how things work, I think it'll sort of level out. And the other thing is, I feel like from the side of the growers, the producers, the retail spaces, they're going to want to approach this from that positive light of, we want to put our best foot forward. I feel like everybody's going to want to try to put their best foot forward. And I think that's going to be the thing that's going to help us the most as far as making it work together, so to speak. And I'm also looking at a lot of the positives too. I feel like the tourism is definitely going to help that. We're going to see a boom in revenue. On as far as that goes. So you take the negatives and the positives, and I think that it'll all work out for the greater good. But I think this roundtable is a great start to kind of get our heads on straight, so to speak. Figure out where we're at, I guess. So that's this Thursday, 5:30 to 7:30.
Right.
And that's going to be at the Archive Building there at the Historical Society, correct?
Correct.
Now, if folks want more information about the Chaves County Federated Republican Women, how do they go back and hold you guys?
They can get on our website or on our Facebook page, which is the Chaves County Federated Republican Women. That has most of our information, our meetings. We meet once a month, the third Wednesday of the month, and we have speakers every month. But this event was kind of Christina's brainchild. She wanted to do, our normal monthly meetings are about an hour, and we can't oftentimes, that's a very short time to get a lot of information in from our speakers. So Cristina thought, perhaps this roundtable, this quarterly roundtable would be good to get more information out, allow people to interact more with speakers or people that we bring in to educate us. And so anyway, we meet once a month, and we really try to bring relevant and educational speakers in, just to make sure that we are educating our membership. We're getting the best information to make our decisions at the ballot and otherwise. So, like I said, we meet once a month. This is a new thing that we've started, and so we really try to be active in our community according to our bylaws. So we do what we can to help Chaves County.
And I like that you're, like you mentioned, you're utilizing the time that you're given. If it's only an hour, in this case, a couple hours, you're filling that time with really good information, with really good speakers, and the way that you're approaching it as I'm looking at the list of speakers, from all different aspects, from the business side, from the legal side, and from the parent side of things. There's going to be people with a lot of questions there, and I feel like the group that we have here is going to be educated enough they can answer pretty much all the questions that'll be there.
Yeah,
So-
it's not opinion based. This is basically just informative.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're sticking to factual, but you never know.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Just get as much actual factual information out there
Yep.
as we can, and
Absolutely.
let people make their own decisions.
That's exactly right.
So this Thursday, 5:30 to 7:30, it's going to be at the Archive Building there at the Historical Society, 200 North Lee. Folks want more information. How do they go about getting a hold of you?
You can contact me. My number is 575-317-5640. Or like I said, on our Facebook page, you can message that and we can get back to you.
Perfect. I will put a link to that over on the 106.5 Roswell's Talk FM Facebook page so folks can get access to it. I want to
Thank
encourage
you.
everybody out there to come on out, get educated. This is going to be, it's a brave new world that we're stepping out into, and the best thing you can do is put some knowledge on your brain.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We'll see you here
Absolutely.
next time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. 35 minutes.